Well, hello, my name is Brandon, and I'm just going to be doing a quick, your first 5 minutes on Signal Lord. So we'll just assume, like, just opened up Signal Lord for the day. I want to see what's going on. So we got the logo there at the top, and we're looking at price action. It looks like we've sold off a little bit in the last day here, a low of 74,700. Looks like we bounced back up to about 75,000. And so let's see what's going on. We're going to ignore Odin's track record here for a second and just go right down to the synthesized data. This is the data that our analyst that we call Odin, which is an Anthropic LLM agent that synthesizes data that's trained to look at all of the data that we have here in Signal Lord and give an analysis. So we got a 1 to 2 week in this first card here, the second orange card here, we got a 1 to 3 month, and then we got a complete overview of all the data. So it says here daily momentum is fading with MACD turning bearish, price hovering just above the 38.2 fib support level. Long liquidations dominated in the past 24 hours. Blah, blah, blah. Draining excess leverage. Positioning is like less than 1 out of 10. Suggesting that the froth is already cleared, but no conviction building yet. So this is just talking about the MACD, which is a measure of momentum, which has to do with technical analysis. If you don't know what that is, that's fine. I'm going to have other things that explain what all this is and what it means. Basically, there's two sides of the market with Bitcoin and lots of things. Pretty much anything that trades on an exchange is going to have a fundamental side, which has to do with macro and institutional and retail buyers and that sort of momentum and forces. And then on the other side is technical analysis, which is really just a measure of price history, price action patterns, and all of those indicators. MACD is just a momentum indicator, and it's saying on the daily it flipped bearish, and you can see that in our TA section of Signal Lord. The fib level support it's talking about, that's just a classic first stop, which is the 38.2%. It's where you're going to look for a breakout or a breakdown scenario. And we have that as support, so that means we're above it. So that's great. Long liquidations have dominated, so that's why we see the price going down a little bit. We see this little sell-off here in the last day. And if you scroll down a little bit further to liquidations, you can see that the red bars there are adding up to more money than the green bars. And if you look at our momentum indicator here, that's certainly the case. Although short term here in the last hour, it has flipped green. So that means that the shorts might start getting liquidated. And if that continues, we'll expect to see this price go back up. And the 1 to 3 month is kind of telling a similar situation, just a little bit different. The big picture here, it says Bitcoin is trapped in a range-bound regime, matching the summer of 2024's four-month consolidation between 56,000 and 70,000, a period that ultimately resolved with a breakout as macro liquidity improved. Now, this is very interesting because it's finding that this is matching historical pattern in 2024. So our LLM, our Anthropic Opus 4.7 LLM has figured this out. It said, check this out. This is lining up with this, and the probability that this is going to consolidate into the summer is about 80% based on all the data and back testing. What's interesting about that is by summer we're going to have a new Fed chair confirmed. Kevin Walsh has just been confirmed. He's going to take over for Jerome Powell May 15th. So by the middle of the summer, we might see them start to ease. Lower interest rates, provide liquidity, and guess what? Bitcoin will rip if that happens. So that's very interesting that it is seeing that. And then later it says the immediate setup is fragile. Daily MACD just flipped bearish. It just said that earlier in the card we saw above that. It's reiterating that. Liquidations, yet positioning washed out. So it's muting. Indicated no crowded trade left to unwind, which is good news, actually. Medium term, the picture is more constructive. The weekly MACD, which is a different time frame, is bullish, and you can see that on our TA tab. So it goes on to a lot more data here that we can explain in other videos. Talks about the ETF flows, which is actually constructive. They're building. We can show you that in the institutional card. And so this just gives you a really good analysis. And then at the very end here, it just says But the range-bound regime and washed-out positioning favor patient accumulation into weakness rather than aggressive directional bets. So it's saying kind of just hang out, be patient. We're kind of still trying to figure this out right now. Nobody knows which way this is going to go. But 80% we're going to chop, and then if macro conditions improve, we're going to see kind of a repeat of 2024 summer, and price will go up. This is a coiling setup, not a trending one. So it is definitely seeing a coil and not like a bull or a bear trend. Going down through here, I'll look at these gauges, definitely consistent with more of a bear market. Again, we're looking at the liquidation data here. I will scroll through that and see, does this look like it's way overweighted? If so, we're going to see a really fast spike in price to the up or down side. We're not seeing that right now. It's pretty balanced. That looks pretty normal. Overall liquidations aren't too high right now. 155 million sounds like a lot, but it's actually not that much. This is actually pretty light. Liquidity, you can scroll through this as much as I would expect. It's slightly tightening, right around half. The Fed is just kind of in a zone, right? They're not printing a lot of money, and we're not raising rates. So we're kind of just in this medium zone. Risk is neutral. Our VIX has calmed down. The VIX did spike way up. The VIX, if you don't know what that is, just a volatility index of equities. It tends to affect equities and risk on assets like Bitcoin. When the VIX spikes way up, usually things sell off. I have another indicator we will touch on that shows that these do mark bottoms. Very interesting. The DXY direction is pretty much zero right now. It's just kind of hanging out. It's 0.32% on the 1 day. Real yields are almost 2%. Blah, blah, blah. This is not a whole lot going on here. It's pretty boring. This is something kind of interesting to look at, though. The short-term holder realized price is starting to converge with the Bitcoin price. And so we can go into that later, but the short-term holders are a little more jumpy than longer-term holders, and the chances for them to unwind a position at any sort of break even is a little higher. So that's something we will watch. Then going back up here to on-chain, this is something that I will look at down here. We'll go through these time frames here. This is kind of important, exchange flows. It's kind of a big thing that everybody looks at. So this just shows you our Bitcoin being put onto exchanges, or are they being taken off of exchanges into cold storage? If they're going onto exchanges, indicated in red bars, and they are most likely going on there to be sold for dollars. So that is a negative downward price pressure. If they're green, they're being taken off exchanges, presumably to be put in cold storage, nowhere where they could sell them for dollars. So that is green, bullish, upward pressure. So that's something we're looking at. It's pretty even right now, nothing too crazy. We'll go to the institutional tab. Again, another bar chart here that's very good to look at is institutional. This is the big player in the market, has now been for 2 years. Institutions are buying. In the last 24 hours, there was a little bit of sell, but look at these numbers on the 7-day and the 30-day. Up 232 million. 30 days, they bought 1.7 billion. 3 months, they have bought 534 million. And in 1 year, they've bought, 2.8 million. Or 2.8 billion, sorry. I think that's how you read that, yeah. So the bottom line is it's all very bullish. The institutions have been buying all the selling. So as the price goes down, they just keep buying enough to load up their bag. So that's very bullish for the long term. And then we look at ETF activity. So this is the institutional ETF like BlackRock, right? And down here we have ETF activity proxy. The reason why we have this here is because these numbers up here, the ETF numbers come in at the end of the day, so we don't know what's going on in the regular beginning first day, like right now. This shows a little negative in the intraday. This will probably give us a negative indicator for tomorrow. So this gives us a little bit of information to read for what's going to happen for tomorrow. The CME basis trade we'll go into later, but that's basically non-directional Bitcoin buyers that buy the CME They buy the Bitcoin ETF paper on their long position, and then they go right over and buy the same amount of Bitcoin short contracts in the futures. And as long as there's a positive spread or it's in contango, they'll just capture that spread, and that's upward price pressure in Bitcoin. But they're not interested in holding Bitcoin. They just want to capture that spread. This has been negative for a while, so those players have allocated their money somewhere else. When that comes back, we will see a bid, a structural bid, coming out of the institutional buyers again. Master and NAV, we can get into that another time. This is basically retail buyers that are trying to buy paper Bitcoin in a sense, or a proxy of. Coinbase Premium is almost flat. This is that VIX chart I was talking about. This is very interesting. Excuse me. Looking at the 2-year chart here. Okay, this line here, this was Iran, okay? The VIX spiked, the VIX spiked on all the Iran stuff. See these red, see how the red bars, lines chopped up, and there's those little green dots. So those marked bottoms in Bitcoin. When VIX spikes, we usually get a bottom in Bitcoin. Look at over here how it spiked so high. That was Liberation Day. That was when Trump announced all the tariffs. So give you some context. VIX thought it was way more of the end of the world when the tariffs were unloaded on the world than they did with the prospect of potential World War III over here with Iran. So that gives you some context. But look what happened here, and when VIX spiked really high with the tariff news, it marked a bottom. And what happened? Bitcoin went on to set a new all-time high a couple months later. Well, we just had a huge spike with Bitcoin. It seems to be calming down. The sentiment is that Mr. Trump is probably going to try to wrap up this Iranian thing in the next few months because he does have midterms coming up. And it's probably over. And VIX is kind of calling it. And so we got some bottoms in the Bitcoin price. I would expect Bitcoin to rally from here. How high? We don't know. I think it could be coupled with confirmation of Mr. Warsh coming in as the Fed chair and a potential of printing to roll over all the debt, all of which will affect Bitcoin in a positive way. We'll see how that plays out. This is just the Bitcoin gold ratio. I believe that will converge again as gold will come back to equilibrium a little bit, and we get this bottom in with Bitcoin and a little bit of a bull rally. So these are some things I look at when I'm trying to do the quick. I know this was way longer than 5 minutes, but here's the TA section. This is very important. Let's go back and just kind of revisit this. This first chart here is really nice to look at. Those dotted lines are Bollinger Bands. When those squeeze, we get a move in Bitcoin. So when they start to constrict, we usually get a big move in Bitcoin, whether it's going to be to the upside or the downside. We never know. But usually when those things constrict, we get a move in Bitcoin. Usually Bitcoin will bounce either off the top side or the bottom side of these purple and gold lines. The purple is the 50-day moving average. The gold is the 200-day moving average. This is the daily time frame for those. Looks like we just bounced off the top level of the Bollinger Bands, and I would assume we will bounce off the 50-day. These are getting ready to converge. And if the 50 crosses over top of the 200, I believe that will be a daily golden cross. This is the daily Fibonacci retracement here, and this is interesting. You can see that white line heading back down to the 38.2%, and it was talking about that in the analysis at the top. So that's going to be the support at around $74,800. If I were going to try to put in some floor buy orders, I would put them in around $75,000, as it has confluence with this 38% Fibonacci retracement. Again, the daily MACD, as it said, flipped bearish. Look at these lines down here. We got a red bearish flip on the MACD. If you go up here and change it to the weekly, as it said, we should see a green bullish flip. And look at that, we do. We have a green bullish flip on the MACD, and it's bullish on the RSI. Both are measuring momentum. And we're bouncing off the bottom of the Bollinger Bands on the weekly technical analysis, and we've made sure to stay above the 200-day moving average on the weekly. So that's interesting information to consider. Going back to the tabs here, we got macro. Not a whole lot has changed here. Everything is pretty positive. This is like a longer term to medium term set of indicators, so everything is still looking green light here for Bitcoin. Again, it shows here that the Jerome Powell's term expires here in about 2 weeks, and we're going to have Kevin Warsh chair. I believe he was just confirmed. I saw over the wire. I think Zero Hedge reported on it. Sentiment. If you want to go in and check out the poly market bets that are considering Bitcoin, you can do that. And you can also take a look at these news articles. Sometimes I do that. There's definitely good news articles that the LLM picks out for this. So that's kind of the first 5 minutes on SignalLord. There are these other tabs. You can always go adjust your playbooks if you want to click any of these on to be alerted if we do have some breakouts or capitulation. That's good to have them enabled. If you have any questions, you can type it down here to ask our LLM specific questions about Bitcoin. And I think I'll leave it there.